Hi, everyone, and welcome to Bridging School and Home Through Shared Tools. My name is Carrie Cormier. I'm an instructor in Rowan's Department of Interdisciplinary and Inclusive Education. I'm also a former special education teacher. And so in this session, we're going to be going over a quick overview of some key concepts of differentiated instruction, then exploring the purpose of learning cubes as a tool to connect school and home, and then also how to explore and make cubes and considerations and variations of cubes. So let's get into it. So real quick, a refresher on differentiated instruction. What is it? It is simply put, everyone thinks and learns differently, so we must account for and accommodate this diversity in our teaching. We're going to respond to variance among learners by changing the level, the pace, or the kind of instruction that we're providing based on learners' needs, their styles, their interests, and this idea is rooted in research, right? Neuroscience and cognitive psychology tell us that students learn differently based on culture, gender, even how their own brains are structured. And so our instruction has to respond to that diversity and to this variance in our students. So, how do we differentiate? We can differentiate the content, so how students are accessing the material. Can it be text-based? Can it be video-based? Can it be a podcast or other audio-based means? Differentiating our process. How do students make sense of the materials? Can they work individually? Can they work with a partner? We can differentiate the product. So, how do students show what they know? Is there more than one way to show that they have learned something, that they've mastered some material, or that they're making progress on some materials? And then differentiating our environment. Does the classroom environment respond to different ways to learn and work? Do students have a choice in how, when, or where they're working? So those are some different ways that we can differentiate. And we're going to do all of that based on students' readiness, their interests, and their learning profiles. So students should see their curiosity reflected in the classroom, right? What they're interested in can be in the content that we're providing, right? We can incorporate their interest into a math problem or into a story or something like that. Um, and again, this idea of a Goldilocks approach, right? It's not too hard, it's not too easy. They need that just right level of material and process and product. And then finally, students should be able to learn and work in a way that meets their needs. And again, we've seen this past year in this pandemic that students were working in a way that was suitable to them, hopefully, not everyone. But again, that they were given this chance to be flexible in their environment and in their processes a bit more, and even differentiating the products, in this virtual environment. And so recognizing that as a means of differentiation. So bringing differentiated instruction and inclusion together both emphasize the need for a supportive community, both in and out of school. And so Norman Kuntz defines inclusion or inclusive education as the valuing of diversity within the human community. When inclusive education is fully embraced, we abandon the idea that children have to become quote unquote normal in order to contribute to the world. We begin to look beyond typical ways of becoming valued members of the community, and in doing so, begin to realize the achievable goal of providing children with an authentic sense of belonging. And so differentiated instruction helps make inclusion happen. It allows for a student-centered approach that appreciates and values diverse ways of knowing and doing and being. Right? There is no wrong way to learn. And so it also allows for adaptations and accommodations in the general education setting. And it allows for a climate that celebrates and honors students' ways of being in the world. It allows for us to appreciate and honor their diversity. So I always relied as a special education teacher on metaphors to help my students come to understand a topic. So Carol Ann Tomlinson gives us this really fantastic metaphor for differentiated instruction is comparing it to conducting an orchestra, right? With the teacher as the conductor and the students as the musician. So every instrument or student is going to require a certain skill to play harmoniously. Different instruments require different skills, and that's not a bad thing. Um, and again, the instruments might sound different, but they all work together to play the same song. They're going to play different roles within that song. But again, there's no right or wrong way to play the song based on their needs. So again, like a trumpet might be a little different than a violin, but they're both making music and they're both working towards creating this full, rich sound in music. And so we see that it's not a question of if the students can make music, or if they can learn, but it's rather how they can make their music. And so it's changing that mindset, right? And recognizing that all students are capable of music and learning. It's just a matter of how we help them. So using cubes really helps us get into this idea of all students being invited to make music, right? Being invited to show what they know and to participate meaningfully in learning. So our goal is to allow students and get all students to understand and access the material in a way that honors their readiness levels. And so our strategy for that goal is to implement learning cubes. Again, it's this Goldilocks approach where we're allowing students to do work that is just right for them. It provides students with choice and options, which research shows us increases engagement. And I know it's not going to be every time that they're going to be fully engaged, but it does motivate them a bit more when they have a say in how they go about conducting their learning. And we can also tier our cubes according to readiness levels. So students who might have high support needs or low support needs. And again, we're going to move away from labeling students as high, middle, low, or using our cubes as this is my high learners cube, my low learners cube, because again, all students in all different areas are going to be high and low at different times, and that's okay. So really, looking at you might need more support in one area, another student might need more support in another area, but all students are capable of doing the work, and cubes will allow them to show us that. So steps for creating and designing your cubes. You're going to select your content first, and cubes are versatile in that they work well in all areas. Some ideas here, and these are just a few, there are many, many more. You can have math problems on a cube. You can have writing prompts, reading comprehension questions, project ideas, using them as tasks for learning centers or stations. After you decide what content you're going to do with your cube, you're going to decide if you're going to differentiate the content, the process, or the product. So the content, you're going to offer options for materials. So one side of a cube might say, read this article. Another side might say, watch a video. Another side might say, listen to a podcast. You can also differentiate the process. So students can do written work, hands-on work, partner work, changing how they're doing their learning. And then finally, you can differentiate the product. So using Gardner's multiple intelligences, you can give students options to show their work. So they can perform a skit, they can write a story, they can make a graph. Again, many, many ideas can come from this work. And then finally, using Blooms to make sure that you're pushing all students to reach towards higher order thinking skills. So consider a variety of questions at different levels of Blooms to ensure all students are being pushed to think deeply about whatever the topic is on the cube. So some sample cubes, getting a sense for what this looks like. This template here is just a generic template. I filled this one in based on reading comprehension questions. And so again, you'll see in this question here, what is one thing you liked about the main character? I'm asking students to evaluate, right? So again, higher order thinking skills, they're gonna make a judgment. Imagine a different ending for a story and rewrite the story. So getting them to at that create level of Blooms. What is one thing you would do differently from the main character? Again, analyzing and evaluating the judgments of the character. What was the conflict? So just simple identifying the conflict, a little bit lower order here. And same one here, finding an example of imagery. What are some descriptive words that help you imagine the story? And then finally, this last one, how can you connect the story to another story? So pushing students again to that analysis level where they're comparing and contrasting. So there's a variety of different levels of thinking, different tasks, different ways that students can show their understanding and their knowledge of the story. Over here are some other samples. So again, this is what it looks like printed out, folded up together. There are also, you can find these many different places online, cubes that have whiteboard sides. So you can write on the cube and change it up as you go. There are also cubes that have clear pockets where you can just kind of insert a task card and so change it up that way. And then there are also activity-based cubes, right? So this one is a cube that has jumping jacks on it. Other sides are having students hop on one leg. And so this can kind of help students with brain breaks, right? I used to use this a lot. I permanently borrowed an activity cube from the gym teacher at the school that I worked at, and it became my brain break cube. And students, got to roll the cube and the class would do whatever the activity was just to change it up, especially after lunchtime. Um, And it's a great way to bring that into the classroom. Maybe like Go Noodle gets a little old sometimes. So it's just another supplemental tool that you can use. So you might be saying this is all great in theory, but what does it look like in a classroom when all students are working on something potentially different? So grading cube work, and there's a couple different options that you can consider. And all of it involves flexibility in recognizing that students are working in a way that's unique to their own needs. So you can make a general rubric that assesses the quality of the work rather than the quantity of the work or like the specific attributes of each assignment. Um, and you might be looking for ideas, organization, things like that on the rubric. You can also assign points to each task and have students work towards a certain number of points. So everybody must complete 10 points worth of work. So that might mean that they can roll the cube and do 2 activities. They might have to roll the cube and do 3 or 4 activities. Um, and then you can also rely on interviews, and this is a great way to get in those conferences that are often required, right? Interview students as they're working to assess their understanding. So just have them talk you through what they're doing and get a sense for their understanding in that way. You can also create an essential question that everyone is going to answer at the completion of their cube work, and all tasks on the cube tied directly to that essential question. Um, and so you would grade that final conversation at the end of them going through the cube work. So some considerations and variations to keep in mind with your cubes. You can tier the cubes up or down based on challenge or complexity. So you can have them work at higher levels of blooms like analyze versus, the level of apply or comprehend. Um, you can also adjust for complexity by increasing or decreasing the quantity of a task. So you can have one cube be make a 2-circle Venn diagram. Another cube can be make a 3-circle Venn diagram. And you can change up the colors of the cubes so you can differentiate between like what level each cube is at, and make sure that you're constantly changing the colors so students don't know like, oh, the green cube means like, you're a quote unquote like high learner, where, another colored cube might be, students who are seen as being lower. And again, breaking ourselves out of those uses and labels. So thinking about using cubes as part of a learning pathway. So you can introduce the content as a whole group and then use the cubes as a way to offer choice for students to navigate more in depth in the material and share out their learning at the end. And finally, you can have your cubes become part of a reading writing routine. I know we've all had students who, when they're given a writing test, like, I don't know what to write about. Well, you can have writing prompts on your cube and have students roll it and then use that cube as like a sentence starter or a brainstorm, something like that. You can also have cubes that have particular comprehension questions, again varied at different levels. You can have basic comprehension, like surface level comprehension. You can also have more in-depth analytical comprehension questions for students to work through. And then connecting with families. Tubes are versatile in any environment, so you can easily make these cubes and send them home, or have parents, get some materials, put a cube together at home, and that way you can kind of share like, these are the questions we're working on in school. Like, it would be awesome if you can work on these questions with your child at home. Um, they're easy to implement in many settings, like I said, and it helps you establish consistency in routines and language between home and school. And you can also refer families to the family-oriented video that is done complementary to this video. And so parents can have that as a resource in how to go about using cubes at home. And so some references, if you want to look further into this, Diane Hecox and Caroline Tomlinson have a lot of great work regarding differentiated instruction and many different strategies that aren't covered here. So I highly recommend that you go ahead and read their work for more ideas. And thank you for watching and attending this video. I hope it was helpful. And you can find more materials at the LRC South website.